Yeah, protecting the privacy when they're young is very important. I think that some people don't think about that, when you have, you post a picture and you think it's cute, but then it really ends up in the public domain. Anyone can copy that, do whatever they want to it. They can put it in an AI and manipulate it. So, and find out information about your small children, maybe where they go to school, where they go to daycare, what sports that they're in. I mean, they can collect one of the biggest, biggest platforms for any malicious actor, whether it's a digital hacker or it's somebody who's like trying to get, trying to get kids to interact with them online, is open source social media. I mean, you just create an account on Facebook and you can find out all this information about kids. Then they create fake account, pretend like they're another child, and they already have all this information about them because you, the parent, posted it online.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and today I have with me an extraordinary human, extraordinary woman. Her name is Leia Shilobod. She is the Chief Security Officer of CompliancyIT, author of Cyber Warfare, and co-producer of the documentary Cybercrime, The Dark Web Uncovered. She provides companies with cybersecurity compliance as well as compliant help desk, infrastructure, and security services. We started the interview with her journey as a single mom trying to build her company after a breakup from almost from the ground up, being a mom of 4 children, and one of them is a special need child that actually showed up at the end of the interview. It's very cute. And how she managed to, through stoic philosophy, to put her emotions aside and take really smart decisions for her life, living her life her own way, not fitting the mold of what a mom should be or what an entrepreneur should be, and just how she managed to mix it all together in a very beautiful way. In the second half of the interview, we talked about actual cybersecurity, how to protect your children, how to protect yourself, what is the danger, and what is to come as far as cybersecurity. And we didn't have much time. We just touched the tip of the iceberg, but I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from this episode. It was very inspiring and very beautiful. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Leia, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for this conversation, both on learning more about your personal journey, which is incredible, and also learn about some things around cybersecurity that we don't know, and anybody should be doing these days.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me today, Orion. It is my pleasure to be here. And like you said, it's been quite an interesting journey personally. And that, of course, weaves its way into business. So I'm excited to talk to you about that journey and then also drop a couple of thoughts for everybody on some simple cybersecurity practices that they can implement right away to make them a lot more secure.
Okay, cool. So let's start with your origin story. Where do you want to begin? What brought you into what you're doing today?
Yeah, I actually studied psychology when I went to college because I thought that I was going to solve the world's problems from an easy chair. And then when I got out into the world and I started to work in human services, I felt like there was something that I needed to do that was a lot bigger. Um, it turns out later in life that looking back on my entire life, that I was always built to be an entrepreneur, but that was sort of pushed down in me, from my family and from other people around me because I didn't understand it. So it was made sense that I was unhappy just being in human services. So I started my first business when I was 23. I did professional writing and some design work. I'm a decent writer. I wrote a couple books, but I was kind of like a mediocre designer, but I just knew that I needed to build something. Like that is how I'm built to build and create things. So when my husband at the time, who had been working in IT, was thinking about starting an IT company because he was frustrated with where he worked, I figured, hey, this is an awesome opportunity. I can just sell and market his capabilities. So we moved back to the Pittsburgh area from Hampton Roads in Virginia in 2006, and we opened up our IT company. At that time, it was called Intech Solutions, and I worked really hard to grow it. Along the way, we had a lot of dips. We tried a failed merger with another company and came out of that making a fraction of what we were beforehand. um, yeah, after that, that was in 2010, and then in 2014, so 3, 4 short years later, um, we had some drama happen inside of our company and because of that, the outcome was that we lost 62% of our business in one quarter, the fourth quarter of 2014. Yeah. And it was really like that was one of my biggest turning points, actually, because I had the ability at that time, because of what had occurred, was an employee had gotten very frustrated with several things internally in my company and kind of negotiated with one of our clients to go and work with them in internal IT. And when he left, he also talked to some other clients that um, were some of our largest accounts, and they felt uncomfortable staying with the company. So they left us. And so that was like a big chunk of our business that left. I had the opportunity then to either um, take this as an opportunity to be a victim and say, oh, all this bad stuff happened to me. Oh, this guy or, this situation, these clients, and make it about other people's actions. Or I had the opportunity to say, this is my fault. This is my company. This is my life. And my success and my failure is my fault, which is what I decided to do, is to take the ownership of that moving forward. So even though in 2015, we, started that year with very, very little, and I committed myself to a course of action to take full ownership and build my business back. Just so you can understand the dire straits that we were in June of that year, I asked one of my other IT business owner friends for $6,000 so that I could cover payroll. And our house that we lived in went into foreclosure 3 times that year because I had to pay employees. They get paid first, right? The business bills and employees get paid first. I get paid last. Um, but but that really showed me that no matter what it is, if I really want to do it, I'm going to succeed at it. I'm going to find a way to make it happen. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that year.
You seem like a go-getter. And but how do you develop that mindset of no matter what, I'm going to make this happen and I'm going to take ownership? Did you have some mentors? What helps your evolution? Was it just internal guidance?
That's a really good question. At that particular moment, it definitely was that internal compass that I had, recognizing that I was at a turning point where I could make one of two decisions, and that allowing myself to be a victim was not going to get me anywhere that I say I wanted to be. That was part of it.
And you had 4 kids at the time, right?
Yes, 4 children.
Four children, and yet you're working so hard on building this thing and making it happen. That's incredible.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things there. The first is that I recognize and I embrace now, where before I had a hard time embracing it, that I'm just really different. I'm not like most people, and that's okay.
I like that. It's something I'm trying to still embrace myself. It's like I want to be like you, but I just can't. Sorry.
Yes, you can. Um, so I felt, like having my kids at work was okay for me. So if it was okay for me, then I felt like I had to be okay for everyone that I worked with. So I just told my team, hey, if you need to bring your kids to the office for something, daycare falls through, they're sick, whatever, that's cool. I wanted to extend the same thing that, I decided what I want for my life and for my business, I want to extend to the rest of my team. And I took my kids with me to a lot of different stuff. I'd take them sometimes to a networking event. When my youngest daughter was born, I went back to work 3 days later with her strapped to my chest. I took her on a server install to a different state. This is actually pretty funny. So, like, I had this like Maya sling thing that I absolutely loved that would put her in whenever we'd go somewhere. And she was breastfeeding, and we were talking to, we were like on site in a different state, installing the server and all these computers. And I have her in the sling, and I'm breastfeeding her so she could be quiet. And and then suddenly, like when I'm talking to the client, right? Luckily, it was a woman. But as we're talking and telling it, she pulls away from the breast and she pulls down on my boob, and this big waterfall of breast milk just goes like this.
That's so
Like,
funny.
at least it was a woman, right? But you know, it's about like, that kind of typifies, the way that I'm just like, we're just going to continue to roll, right? Like whatever it is, we're just going to figure out a way and we'll just continue to roll.
Wow, I'm sure your kids are different too because they grew up in this more interesting, inclusive environment. A lot of time, parents really separate work and kids, and there is the kids world and the adult world. But it's almost like you prepare them for life in a way, and like this little was it a girl? The girl was nursing. Yeah, that's great modeling for what a mom can be like. That's incredible.
Sometimes I think that they would have preferred that I was, like normal, like everybody else's parents. But, I think as they get older, they recognize more of the value of being with somebody who kind of is okay with going against the flow. But sometimes I think they definitely wish that like I was, normal and doing all the normal things. But now they're very accepting of my different way of doing things.
Yeah, and for you there was no other way, right?
That's kind of it. Like the more that I just tried to be someone I was not, the more I tried to conform to what people I thought people said that I needed to do, the more unhappy that I was. And so there was this like, this is what I say I want my life to be. And then I see like either the actions that I'm taking, the thoughts that I'm having, or the pressure from external forces going in a different direction. And I had to get real honest with myself. Like, if I say that I really want these things, if I say that I really want a strong partnership from like a life partner, if I say that, I want to be able to save money, if I say I want to be able to grow my business, then I have to get real with myself and identify what are those actions that I'm taking, what are the voices that I'm hearing that they're taking me in the different direction than the thing that I say I want. And with that kind of really brutal honesty, you have to make some really hard choices. And one of those choices that I made that was very hard was leaving my husband because he was my business partner and we were married for a very long time. And I took them and bought a house, moved out, and it was another 5 years before we were divorced. And then I bought him out of the business.
Wow, incredible. You're such a go-getter. That's it's so amazing. How do you deal with difficult times? It looks like you take the decisions, and I'm going to be real with myself. I'm going to take the decisions. How do you deal with those naysayers, with even internal voices that say, who are you kidding? How can you do it? You have 4 kids. You just got divorced. How are you going to take this business to the next level? Who are you kidding?
Yeah. So I tell people that it's really important that you have a really good diet of information and influences coming into you that are going to continue to help you get in the direction you say you want to get. So, whether that is going on social media and cutting out, like, you can mute if you're afraid to, like, unfriend someone on Facebook, you can mute them and never hear what they have to say, and they don't know that. They don't know you never see their negative posts. On Instagram, I actually curate that entire feed to just be very inspirational, things that are coming up about business, about personal development. I'm a fan of Stoic philosophy, so a lot of those things are those tags are tags that I follow. So,
What is Stoic philosophy?
oh, okay. So Stoic philosophy is it's an ancient philosophy that was founded by a Greek, Zeno of Citadum, and I can't tell you how long ago that was. It was before Christ. It was a long time ago, and over 2,000 years ago. And his so he was a merchant, and he had this boat that he invested so much money in this ship that was going to had all of these goods, and that he was going to go sell, and he got shipwrecked. And he was in a very similar situation than I was when I lost all that business, except maybe it was probably more devastating for him. But he shipwrecked, and he said, I was shipwrecked before I even left the port. In other words, this thing was destined to happen. And if it happens, then you have to just accept it as it is. It kind of goes in a similar way. If you, I'm sure you have, but if your listeners have heard Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, where he talks about the difference between your life and your life situation. So the Stoics believe that a situation that you're in, if you're judging it, you can judge it as good, or you can judge it as bad, or you can be indifferent about it. In other words, not have your emotions tied to it so much. And being able to remove that emotional tie to a situation allows your brain psychologically to be able to come to a better, more calm place where you can make better decisions. You can see a different perspective, perhaps, and a way through. Because if you are really angry, if you are really upset or distressed, if you're very sad, like, your brain cannot function at a high level. It's just not possible. So you need to be able to get to a more solid state in order to determine how to act. And Stoic philosophy talks about that, the focus on the virtues, being a virtuous person. It talks about how, like, Marcus Aurelius was one of the Stoics, one of the emperors of Rome. He talks about how we were made for each other. Community is very important, and choosing, sometimes, you're going to come up against people who are rude or unkind, and that's just life. And so you take that as it comes. But the people that you decide to have in your close circle, those people that you bring around you, you need to make sure that's highly curated so that all those people continue to lift you up.
Amazing. So I get the idea of it, of put your emotional world aside, and from a calm place you can make a better decision. Is there a process to put the emotions aside? And because the idea is very appealing. I have to take charge right now. I'm going to push my emotions aside. I'm going to do what I need to do. Yet it also seems very difficult not to. It's almost like you detach from your emotions so you can think clearer. How do you do that?
Yeah. And it's actually so some people, like, like a word to say that people might use when somebody is completely emotionless these days might be like, oh, he's very stoic. And Stoic philosophy is different from that. It recognizes that we are all humans and we have emotions and that they are important. But if you allow yourself to be completely driven by your emotions at every moment, then it's difficult for you to make logical decisions because you're so emotion driven. So, for instance, in the case where something happens, like let's say that someone on my team instant messages me, and I think that they are being very rude or inconsiderate or unkind in like their instant message to me. Perhaps my initial emotion is anger or frustration or irritation, and so you stop and you feel that, right? You say, "Oh, I'm feeling irritated," or "I'm feeling angry." And then instead of pushing it away, you get curious about it. You don't allow yourself to continue in that direction and continue to be irritable. You say, "Oh, I'm feeling irritable about this," or "I'm feeling irritated." So, why am I feeling? What about this is making me feel irritated? So, it's not pushing it away, but changing your perspective. And then and maybe it's because, well, I don't like the way that came across. And then I can ask myself, well, did I interpret that right? Because I mean, it's writing. Sometimes the sender is sending something and you're receiving it in a way it's not intended. So maybe I didn't receive that properly because it wasn't communicated right to me. Or you can say, well, maybe they're really frustrated and they don't know how to communicate the right way to me, and I should just be grateful that they're saying something so that I have the opportunity to fix it. So it helps you to take that moment, like when Viktor Frankl, when he talks about how between stimulus and response there is a space, and that is the space where you get to choose your reaction to that particular stimulus and that emotion.
Amazing. So it's a matter of training yourself with intention. And the more you do it, the quicker and more efficient you're going to be at it.
And the more empowered you feel, when something happens, when a life situation occurs and you feel these emotions that are just tossing you all about, instead you feel empowered because now you know what to do with that emotion. You don't feel like it's pulling you in one direction or another. You can say, and I'm telling you, one of the biggest things that I learned is that how empowering it is to just get curious. Just it doesn't matter which situation you're in. Actually, I would be surprised if I saw that you interviewed Chris Voss before.
Yeah, I
I
did.
love that guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I did.
I read Never Split the Difference at least once a year. It is
Oh, wow.
amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I should
Yeah,
read
but
it. Okay.
oh my gosh, yes. Please.
I have a lot of amazing books at home. We are very good at collecting tons of really, really smart books. And we feel really smart for having those books. And they're still in boxes. It's like, just makes me feel really smart when I have this book in my library.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Chris talks about that too, is that the person across the table is not your adversary. And the best thing to do is to get curious, understand their perspective, understand where it is. Yeah.
This process reminds me of more of a modern teaching of Byron Katie with her questions. Is this true? Can you absolutely know that is true? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Who would you be without that thought? And then there is also a turnaround when you question your questions and you question your thinking and you're thinking about your thinking, you evolve.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And that's I would say that a lot of my approach to life today is from being that voracious learner and always wanting to learn how to be better and think differently. I mean, between the Stoics, I've also read Byron Katie, Chris Voss's books, Eckhart Tolle.
He's a cool guy. I met him in person a few times. He's quite an interesting dude. He's got a very masculine type of macho personality. I like that.
I've taught some of his strategies to my team because like when people call us for an IT or cybersecurity problem, like it's not because they want to be like, hey, you guys are just doing an awesome job. Like stuff's on fire, people are frustrated, and so I taught them some of the strategies, especially the late night DJ voice, which is one of my favorites, which is when somebody's like really upset about something, you just lower the tone of your voice and you start to speak a little slower, and it just automatically calms the person down, and people are like, it works. And they're like, yeah, it does.
I'm going to read this book because I love influence. I do hypnotherapy. I love neurolinguistic programming, and I mean I've been in it for a while now, and I love influencing people in the most possible way, in a heart driven way. So this sounds like a really good book for me to read. If I can just get myself to read it. Yeah, it's inspiring. I want to shift because you mentioned cybersecurity. Let's talk about cybersecurity.
Sure.
What are some things that we need to do in our everyday life that we're not doing?
So I think that the biggest thing, and the thing you need to start with, is that many people are complacent. They think, well, this isn't going to happen to me, or what would hackers want with my business or my personal information? They're not going to get very much anyway. And that's where we start down the wrong path. So in today's world, all of our information is digitized. Your personal information and your business information is all digitized. And even if, like, I was talking to my dad, he's 74 years old, and he's like, I don't I don't have to worry about this stuff. My stuff's not online. I don't have these accounts. And like, dad, like I was able to talk to my mom who gets it, but even if you try, to stay offline, all those corporations that have your information, they have it digital, right? Whether that's your doctor, like the IRS. Like,
Everybody, I feel like everybody knows everything about me to a certain extent. Maybe like everybody has a piece of me, but if somebody can connect the dots, they can find everything about me. There is no privacy. Plus, we have here, my husband loves his Alexa, and even my son likes to ask Alexa questions now. Um, and that's, I know, a listening device, and I know that. Uh, he like every new machine that comes from China have the possibility of connecting and rewiring everything in your house, isn't it?
yeah, so that's what you should be thinking about, is like, what in my business we would call that, like, what is the threat surface? That's a technical term for it. So it's like, think about where you have accounts online. It could be social media, it could be banking. You probably have, I would be really surprised if you even know the number of accounts, because you probably created one 5, 10 years ago and you don't even remember anymore. And so with all of that, is part of your threat surface, where all those accounts are online, who has your information, what kind of information they have about you, and remembering that you are a whole person, right? So you're responsible for your own personal security, and you're also responsible for the security of whatever business you work for or you own or are trying to build. And so you want to keep the same kinds of strategies throughout. That's going to include things like making sure that all of your passwords are unique, long, and complex. And by unique, that does mean that you don't reuse passwords everywhere. I know anyone listening to this right now is thinking, oh, I can't do that.
Well, I'm using one password for all my passwords. You know that one?
You mean like the password manager?
Yeah, it's a password managing app where you just have a master password and it saves all your passwords.
Yes. So that is really helpful. And that's what I'd recommend for everyone, is to get some kind of a password manager, because then you only do have to remember that one password that is long, unique, and complex. And the password manager will actually help you to create more unique passwords and all those other websites. So you don't have like a, yes. So 100% business and personal both need password manager.
Right. So for somebody who doesn't know, what you can do with one password is you create a main password, and then you can store your credit card information. You can store secret notes. And every time you go on a website, you see the icon of one password pops, and you click on it, and it automatically fills up all the right passwords. And also, when you register into a website, it will give you an option of a very long, complex password. And you just hit, yes, save it with this website, and that's it.
Yes. So I highly recommend something like that. Also, one password will do this for you, and a lot of different websites will, and that is being able to turn on two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. So in our term, we call that 2FA or MFA. And you want to turn that on wherever you possibly can and check settings to see if there's a way to turn it on anywhere. Sometimes it will prompt you and say, do you want to turn this on? Sometimes it doesn't, and you have to like go into the settings to be able to turn it on. But do that everywhere you can. Make sure it's at your bank. Make sure it's in your email. Make sure, of course, your password manager, any kind of financial access, your assets, investments, anything like that. Check to make sure that MFA or 2FA is turned on. That's going to be huge.
Yes, the two-factor authentication is in order to log into certain accounts, you'll have to get a text to your phone, for example, with a code, and then you can log into that account. So it's not just one password. There are more steps in order to help you log in that are more secure, so a hacker cannot come and just decode one password. You will have to hack your
Right.
phone as well, or a security question as well.
Or intercept it, which you can do. So that's why some people say, well, I have 2FA turned on, so my password doesn't have to be secure, right? And the answer to that is no, your password still does need to be secure and long, because it's possible to be able to intercept that second factor and grab that token. So even then, you want to make sure that all of your passwords are secure in a password manager, long, complex, and unique. And for length, you're really looking at a minimum of 15 characters. 25 is better, but minimum of 15. And no dictionary words.
Okay, great. What about social media? I have one photo of my son on social media, and this is the day he was born, where I posted our photos. And I don't put his photos on social media. And I signed him up for gymnastics, and I have to sign a waiver that they can take photos. But then on the phone, they're like, "Don't worry, we're not going to post your son's photos." But it's everywhere where people feel like it's totally okay to post kids' photos. And I don't know, especially with all the information that is coming up lately with child predators and stuff like that. It's very dangerous to put your whole life online, right?
I agree with that. So, like you rightly explained, if you allow your child into any kind of program, even school, you do have to sign that release, and they are required to like make sure that they retain your privacy and your child's privacy if you say no. And as far as I've noticed so far, that most organizations take that very seriously and will look through the photos before posting. So that is good. I don't recommend allowing other organizations to do that unless you feel very comfortable with it. I do post on my social media about my children sometimes. I only allow it to be friends that can see those kinds of things instead of the whole world. And they're also older now, which also makes a really big difference because they're also posting on social media about themselves. So,
Well, you have older kids. Mine is tiny, so yeah, it's different.
Yes. Yeah, protecting the privacy when they're young is very important. I think that some people don't think about that, when you have, you post a picture and you think it's cute, but then it really ends up in the public domain. Anyone can copy that, do whatever they want to it. They can put it in an AI and manipulate it. So, and find out information about your small children, maybe where they go to school, where they go to daycare, what sports that they're in. I mean, they can collect one of the biggest, biggest platforms for any malicious actor, whether it's a digital hacker or it's somebody who's like trying to get, trying to get kids to interact with them online, is open source social media. I mean, you just create an account on Facebook and you can find out all this information about kids. Then they create a fake account, pretend like they're another child, and they already have all this information about them because you, the parent, posted it online.
Oh, it is so scary. I feel like my childhood was safer than what's going on today. It's very difficult. How do you protect your? So for me as an entrepreneur, just did a fancy photo shoot. I do post my photos online, and they can end up in the hands of people that I don't want. How do I? Is there any way to protect that, or do I just, everything I post on Instagram will just go anywhere?
Yeah, you have to be prepared for whatever information you post online. Just assume that it doesn't matter what happens to that because you put it out there. So, yeah. So that, I mean, that's what we have to do because those platforms are not secure. They are not, they don't protect our privacy. Even sending an email, I tell people if you have something that is confidential and important to you, do not send it in an email because unless that email is encrypted, when you click send, it goes over the internet in plain text and can be intercepted. And then when it arrives in someone's inbox, they can press forward and send it anywhere else, or their computer could get infected and a malicious actor could get into their email. So if it's really important, only put things in secured portals behind a secure password, multi-factor authentication, and know who has access to it. Everything else in the public domain, just be prepared to lose it.
Is it even safe to speak about things on WhatsApp or over the phone?
So some of those platforms like WhatsApp, they do say that they have end-to-end encryption and that they are more secure than some other messaging applications. But you just want to think about what kind of information you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. You want to make sure that whoever you're sharing it with, you've verified the identity of that person. And again, if it's really highly sensitive or confidential, you want an alternative mechanism to be able to send or share that kind of information. As remember, I mean, if you send something via WhatsApp or one of those messengers, people take screenshots of that and, have it go other places all the time. One of my girlfriends actually called me because her daughter was messaged a couple weeks ago by a boy a couple years older than her saying, hey, I have this picture of you and it's circulating in the middle school. And she was pretty taken aback by it and looked at the picture and it didn't have her daughter's face, but it had some of her daughter's body and very short shorts on. So it wasn't awful, but at the same time, she was pretty uncomfortable with this. And that was sent originally through like the kids have one of those messaging apps, and that's where it was originally sent. And so you never know when someone's going to take a screenshot of something and then shoot it out to a bunch more people.
What about AI manipulation? That's a whole topic, right? Like now you can see a video of somebody, and as the time goes by, it becomes more and more reliable. In the past AI videos, you could see, oh, this is AI, this is totally fake. But now it's getting more and more like real. Like what type of information generation is going to receive? Like how do you know what is true in politics, everywhere. You don't.
You don't. If it's digital, don't trust your eyes. That's what it is. I mean, don't, if you weren't there, if you didn't take the video yourself, if you were not present, take everything with a grain of salt because you do not know anymore. Anything can be manipulated. A photo can be manipulated easily with one of these programs to make it look like something completely different happened than actually did. I mean, like you rightly mentioned, video, you have someone's picture and you can make a video say something with a few short words, like a sentence. The AI can extrapolate that to an entire, phrase or paragraph of whatever that person they want that AI to say. So you cannot trust your own eyes. I mean, going forward, you can't say, "Oh, I saw this video on YouTube. I saw this picture, this meme," because you really don't know. That does force us to get out from behind our computers and actually go into the world and see things for ourselves, which frankly, Orion, I don't think is a bad thing at all. I think that's what we should be doing, is getting out and seeing the world with our own eyes and having our own experiences.
How refreshing. What? You mean actually live like normal human beings and not just live through our social media and through our screens and through our computers. Like every concert you see, like it used to be, everybody with their lighters on the 90s. We used to smoke cigarettes. Everybody were like lighting like real fire, and you see like a sea of like little beautiful light dots. Now it's a sea of iPhones. Ah it's quite terrible, actually. Nobody, you go back to Eckhart Tolle and living in the moment. There is no living in the moment. There is no moment. Everything is living through a filter, through a screen. Have you seen the deep fake of Tom Cruise, the real Tom Cruise?
No, I didn't.
It's amazing. This guy is so good. Like, you definitely think it's Tom Cruise. That is, in the beginning when I saw those videos, I actually thought it was Tom Cruise, but then something didn't work. Like, wait a minute, and it's pretty amazing. I'm gonna add this in the show notes. Now, digital. I think like the whole world is moving toward digital currency. It's a part of the agenda of eliminating cash and controlling us even more. And when I looked at the truckers in Canada, and just because they disobeyed the idea of, just because they protest an idea and claimed their health sovereignty, is that the right word? They just wanted to not be injected, and they protest, and their bank accounts were frozen, and GoFundMe campaigns with millions of dollars were just taken off like that. Like anything, everything that we have digitally in the central bank accounts can be gone in a day. How do we prepare for that?
I That's a really good question, and I'm not going to say that I have all the right answers. But I think that having a very healthy mistrust of governing bodies is a good idea, because we can see that even though in America we have certain rights and then it says that the rights of the people will not be infringed, we've clearly seen that that's
Obviously.
happening.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's like, I feel like the Constitution is a suggestion right now, and like everything is a suggestion now.
Yeah. So I think about, I think there's a huge push towards back towards some self-sufficiency in some ways. I don't like the idea of digital currency because I don't trust any of those banks. And we saw what happened with FTX as far as like a cryptocurrency, where we had a madman who was an egomaniac who was running that and lost, what, $1 billion or something like that. Um, I'm a strong proponent of still being able to have paper money that we get to do with as we see fit, and then other ways to be more self sufficient that I think we've lost over time. Like sometimes I started to make a bunch of different things at home, and I told people about it. Well, let's see. I made my own yogurt. And then from the yogurt, I also made like a cream cheese from that. Um, and I made my own apple cider vinegar. We actually just harvested that this past weekend because I got a bunch of apple scraps from one of my friends' apple trees. We got got a whole bunch of apples, so we had tons of organic apples this fall, and then we had so many that I cut them up and let them ferment for 4 months, and so we have our own apple cider vinegar. And people are like, I didn't know you could do that. And I'm thinking, well, someone had to make these things. If you buy them in the grocery store, someone had to make them. Why can't we make it?
I'm today I'm in the process of making my very own first sourdough bread.
Oh,
I
yay.
know. I went I had another podcast this morning, but I had like an hour and 20 minutes, and I went with my little one. He didn't go to school today. I went to my friend's house, and she gave me a starter, and she taught me what to do, and actually gave me a whole PDF of the how to do it. It's a very long process, but I'm sure it's going to be delicious. I'm very sensitive to gluten, but sourdough bread I can do sometimes. And I think actually cooking that for my family is much healthier. Because, I'm in control. I know what goes in it, and I use organic ingredients. So it's great. Yeah. And I also, during COVID, and I went down deep, deep, deep down all the rabbit holes of what's going on in Hollywood and conspiracy theories and even flat earth, all of it. Like I went down all of those rabbit holes, and I don't trust anybody anymore but God. I sound so jaded. It's not true. I'm still very naive. It's not true actually. No, I try to be more of a Pollyanna and believe in the good of the world. And I also believe that we dictate our reality, and what we project comes back to us. That said, there is a polarity of good and evil in the world. And yet when there is this polarity of good and evil, when the evil increase, which has the light increase as well. It's like the yin yang symbol. It's always in some kind of balance and harmony. And if somebody is struggling with one password or any of this information, just go back to that philosophy and just take a deep breath and question your thinking and all that good stuff. But yeah, so at that time, I grew my very first watermelon. I'm very proud of it. I have a photo of me holding my big watermelon. I only got two. I didn't invest much in growing them, and the second one was stolen by the gardener.
Oh my gosh.
I know. We called him. We said we saw you on the video. Bring it back. It was
It's so
funny.
funny.
It was really funny. Do you have any final tips on cybersecurity and how can we protect ourselves and our loved ones?
So I think that going forward into the world with just a general philosophy is kind of the best and healthiest way to do that. So to think, never trust, always verify, and to assume breach. So assume that whatever you're doing is already insecure, whatever platform is already insecure, and find ways to verify authenticity, find ways to protect your privacy, and find ways to secure anything that you already have, any platforms, your computers, your applications, everything like that.
Wow, I feel like you know we just touched the tip of the iceberg, and this thing is going so deep when it comes to protecting your intellectual property, to protecting your website, to protecting your email, to protecting so many more things. So hopefully to be continued, and I really appreciate your time. Can you share with us where can people find you?
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My handle is Princess Leia, like Princess Leia from Star Wars. You can also find me on Facebook /Leia Shilobod. I think that's what it is. And my website is www.compliancyit.io.
Okay, cool. And that's your son in the background. It's very sweet.
Yeah, this is my special needs son right here, Julian.
Hello. Thank you for being here with us in the interview. You're very kind. So I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you being a lioness mama. I appreciate you being a huntress and a go-getter. And I appreciate you being such a heart-driven human and helping the world the way you do.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure talking to you, Orion.
Thank you, listeners. Remember to never trust, always verify, assume breach, find ways to protect your privacy and secure anything you have, and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.